G'day you mad lads. So I'm back with another useless video, and this is kind of Arcane related I guess, or League of Legends. Now, again, I'm a storyteller and a modder, at least a character modder, and a character writer. Right, so this is what I do, and every artist, no matter what you do, if it's music, you'll create music, or you'll mimic music from Arcane, or whatever inspires you, you're going to copy it, right? So, again, I have plans for all this, even for the storytelling. So, one day, the Dragonborn is going to come to Windhelm as the Dragonborn, and a certain elf is going to spot a certain woman in the fighting pits. Now, this is just her basic look, right? This is kind of her... Let me just pull up her thingy bob right quick. This will be her, like... The phase that I got right now is kind of Vi's emo phase in Arcane when Caitlyn dumps her and she ends up in the fighting pits. Because in Skyrim, in my story, I want to meet her here with the mod called Capital Windhelm. There's actually a fighting pit. And a certain high elf mage will walk down here and go and explore the fighting pit. And she'll come across a certain angry Imperial in here with dwarven gauntlets, throwing hands with some, prisoners, because she's in a, rebel fighting stage. This is kind of where we'll find her, right? And let me just grab her shit real quick. This is what she'll be fighting with. Now, yes, this is... I love, man, when I can mold two things together so perfectly, right? Now, Vi's signature weapons in League of Legends and in Arcane are the Atlas gauntlets, which uses hex crystals, which is hex tech-powered gauntlets, which... Pretty much the crystals are blue, and they shine blue, and they, they're just mirrored. Ethereum and Hextech is just like 100% just a mirrored version of a different universe. I love that shit. So she'll use her signature weapons from League of Legends, as in her hands, which I love, and like I said, man, everything about this just works, dude, 100%. Like, with her name I've gotten here, with the story she's going to have, it'll be very similar to Arcane, because in this story, when my character, one of my characters meet her, she's been broken up with by her love interest, and that is obviously Caitlyn. Now, I don't know what I've called her. It might be Camille. No, wouldn't that be fucked? No, I don't want to call her Camille. Some other name, like an elven, high elven name, because Caitlyn, very similar to Arcane, comes from Piltover, and she's an enforcer, and the enforcers killed Violet's parents, and there's a lot of beef between, eventually it's enemies to lovers sort of thing. I kind of want that too with this, where Caitlyn is a high elf, her mother is a high elf, and she's a diplomat into the Imperial City between relations of the Old Merry Dominion and the Imperials. And again, the Old Merry Dominion had killed her mother in that war, so she's a bit older, she's like in her early 30s, her sister's a couple of years younger than her, not so young, not exactly like Arcane, of course. And again, this high elven version of Caitlyn meets Vi, and they go on this sort of investigating trip. She finds Vi in jail, and she goes to find her sister who's working with this underground criminal dude that didn't like that the elves were there, that killed their people, and sort of similar thing of Jinx and Silco in a way. But shit eventually went bad. Vander 100% looks like a goddamn Nord. That dude is a Nord in Arcane, and he becomes a werewolf sooner or later. So they're playing that story, but. Shit goes bad, and they're about to kill, Vi's sister, and Vi stops it, and Caitlyn breaks up with her, and she heads north into Skyrim to get away from it all, because the one person she loved abandoned her, and she's now in the fighting pits, waiting to die, pretty much. Drink and piss, a lot of alcohol in the inn down over there somewhere, and she's there in here daily fighting, half drunk, waiting to die, until a certain high elf comes in, and, Vi catches her eye because it reminds her of her, Caitlyn. And they have a conversation because that high elf has some Ethereum of her own, and is very intrigued of that she finds this Imperial with Ethereum on her, which blows her mind. That strikes a conversation. Now, again, like I said, she's kind of in her emo phase. Now, she's got the tattoos on her front and her back, so a little bit more than what Vi has. Couldn't find a Vi tattoo, obviously, so I went for Love Heart. Sort of a thing that maybe she got with Caitlyn. She fell in love with a high elf enemy. Now, with Caitlyn, I don't want her to be like a yellow high elf. I want her to be like a humanoid high elf or a pale high elf. So maybe Caitlyn's mother, being a diplomat, fell with an Imperial diplomat, and they had to kind of bond relationships a lot more, and also fell in love with him, adored him, and this sort of thing. So she could be a really kind high elf, but her mother was killed by Violet's sister, which is Jinx and whatever her name is in this other one. And that's why she broke out with her, stuff like that, but whatever. So Caitlyn's going to be like Recently, she was, a child. I don't know how that's all going to work. There's so many story things to prepare and that sort of stuff in your head to put it all on paper and make it actually work. But Caitlyn's going to be like a half-breed. She's going to be a high elf, but with pale skin. And blue eyes, and so maybe dyed her hair blue to kind of mimic Violet. Now, as you can see, Violet does not have... She has black hair. And in Skyrim, Elder Scrolls in general, people don't have naturally pink hair. There is a way around that, of course, with violet mountain violet mountain flowers. You find them all over Skyrim, all over Tamriel, pretty much. And again, she could just easily put this into a goddamn thing, make a dye out of it easy, as a sign of a little bit of rebellion. Now, again, like I said, when we find her, she's going to be in this little emo phase. She's lost the colouring from her hair because, again, Violet was her nickname, and it's also the favourite colour of her Caitlyn and that sort of stuff. So she's gotten rid of it because it reminds her of Caitlyn, and she hates it, and she's just kind of in this really shit spot, when the Dragonborn, or when Minerva actually meets her. And yeah, so eventually, they'll have a conversation, Minerva and her, about Hextech. I called it Hextech. About, the Therium, and strike up a conversation, and eventually she might convince, because, again, Minerva looks very similar in a certain way to the love of her life, so she kind of distracts Violet, reminds her of her, and it's kind of doesn't get romantic with her or anything like that, because she's still loyal to the one she loved, and, this sort of confusing shit. But she's easily conversed by Minerva than anyone else, because, Minerva reminds her of her Caitlyn, and she decides to join the Dragonborn team. And then eventually I'm going to introduce Caitlyn, who's looking for her, that regrets, leaving her and this sort of stuff. The hatred in her heart's kind of moulded over at the last few months, blah, blah. And Caitlyn eventually joins the team as an archer, and joins the team. And then once she comes back, so I kind of want to have her name as Felicia down here, so where her name is, instead of Violet, it's going to be called Felicia. Felicia is her mother in Arcane. That's her mother's name. And according to her being an Imperial, the Imperial's names are very Romanized, and Felicia is pretty much a Roman name in a way. So that kind of works perfectly, where I can take nods out of Arcane and put them into Skyrim all over the goddamn place, and I love that. Like her gauntlets, even like her clothing. I mean, she was a thief as a teenager, right? So, why not with a Thieves Guild armor? A mix of that, right? Which is pretty cool. I love just blending all the Arcane stuff into Skyrim. It just works. Like, that can actually make sense. But like I said, when Caitlyn eventually finds her, she's going to have a visual update. And let me show you real quick. Now, of course, when she finds Violet, Felicia, she'll already be with the Dragonborn team. So she'll be with that team. She'll have the same haircut until eventually she molds things over with her Caitlyn, and they get back together, and we'll have a visual update. And let me show you real quick the sort of visual update that we will have. And here she is. So this would be like her update when her version of Caitlyn finds her amongst the team. Now, at the end of the day, she could join up and one of them could die. I mean, my story is very sandbox when it comes to a lot of a good 98% of the characters. And she, look, end of the day, I'll keep her alive until Caitlyn, of course, because I like the progression update. I mean, the idea of it, right, is because, funny enough, I don't play League of Legends, right? I do not. And I obviously knew who Vi and where she was from, but I looked at this picture the other day and I saw her like armored up with like people called it a corset armoring. I kind of understand that, so I kind of went for like a corset armor plate, like chest plate, because at the end of the day, the Violet kind of bandages her breast in her goth phase because she doesn't want her tits moving around while she's fighting. It's the same thing for us guys with our nuts. We need to wear jocks if you're fighting, or especially skipping, because are very uncomfortable. So, I guess the chest plate, and again, I love Arcane, but fuck me, dude. Violet, and then whenever she shows up next to the next show, really needs to start wearing armor, especially a chest plate and a stomach plate, or something along the lines to keep her breasts locked down so they're not moving around, but also protect her goddamn abdomen area because she keeps getting fucking stabbed and paled and cut in the guts. So, not a very great idea. Now, in my story, Minerva obviously has discovered, gone through quite a few Nord ruins, and she's got a bit of dwarven armor she can kind of mess around with and put together. So Violet is a bit more protected fighting dragons because she'd be using those right there to fight dragons. That's what she's using, her hands. So she gets to armor herself up a bit more. Caitlyn finds her and she kind of starts to re-dye her hair and a bit more of a smile on her face and less drought and disaster, unless she dies. I think it's ugly, bro. I really do. But, sorry about that, it makes sense. it goddamn makes sense. It kind of molds a bit more with her League of Legends character, with her Arcane character, with my Skyrim character. So now she's got abdominal armor, chest armor to keep her breasts locked in, and also protector. And yeah, the matching set for her Atlas Dwarven Ethereum Hextech Gauntlets kind of armor to match with it, which I really like. I think it looks good. I couldn't find any thighs that really matched, so I didn't go with that, unfortunately. But yeah, she has a visual update in my story, and that'd be cool, you know, because I can't wait to get it. I don't know how long it's going to be. You know, my episodes are kind of random. I don't know what's going on half the time, but it'd be cool to come across and actually meet Violet, you know, in her sort of emo phase, and then build her up into this violet-haired woman, and her name will change from Felicia to Violet when her Caitlyn comes back. And there's so much to it, man. Like, Caitlyn hasn't got the name Caitlyn, but Vi calls her that because she doesn't like pronouncing elven names, you know? She's like, she'll just call her Caitlyn. Instead of calling her Cupcake, she'll call her Sweet Roll, because that's kind of the that's the sweet in Skyrim instead of a cupcake. But there's so much there that I'm just going to blend these two together. And she has the same voice as the Dragonborn. You can't really hear it. I turned it off. Settings, audio, voice. So, and she kind of does sound a bit like Haley Steinfeld.
I've got your back. Is there anything else you need?
And for Caitlyn, I will be using the female elf Heidi voice because it's very English. It's very English, I guess you could say. So it kind of makes sense for Caitlyn to have an English accent where she'll have an American accent, where it's water and water. So yeah, I love the sort of progression update this character. I mean, I'm a fan of Arcane. That shit has lived rent-free in my head since I finished watching Season 2. It really has. It's uncomfortable, you know, thinking about something that's that long. It fuck me dead. But, you know, like, I like to, like any sort of art, no matter what it is, drawing, making music, telling stories, or modding, you're kind of inspired to make things. And I've done this with Cora in my game. So Cora's in my game. She's already showed up in my stories. But yeah, so I just really wanted to show off kind of that progression update of Violet, of the two phases, that you meet her in the emo phase, pull her out of it, and there's certain things, yeah, like her hair being dyed. And as you can see, if she stops staring at me, that her inside, like her scalp sort of area, is her bare hair is still black, because it doesn't make sense for them to have pink hair in the Elder Scrolls. So this is kind of just the way that I really wanted to do it. I could probably find something that could add some thigh armor that doesn't look stupid, but I don't know, dude. It's an ugly looking piece of armor, honestly, but it's more protective if you're going to be fighting dragons. Helmet wise, negative. No, but again, I just really wanted to make a useless video to waste people's time. I just wanted to get it out there, you know, show people the shit they do in the background while I'm setting up the stories and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, peace out and catch us later.